and welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast. Now, my next guest is working literally to change the face of B2B sales. She is CEO of Score More Sales, a sales strategy company, and also president of Women Sales Pro for more women in sales and sales leadership. She is a popular keynote speaker on sales and on women in sales, and is recognized by LinkedIn as a top voice in B2B sales. Welcome to Scale Your Sales podcast, Laurie Richardson. It's great to have you on.
Thank you, Janice. It's just a pleasure to be here. It really is.
Now, firstly, we are all experiencing challenging times. So can you tell us what advice you would give sellers that must ride out this pandemic?
Yeah, I believe that the people who have been consultative in the past, consultative sellers, are going to keep doing what they're doing because we're all about adding value. We're all about listening to our buyers. We're about understanding who our buyers' customers are. You know, these are some of the things that people are now teaching people to do. Like, you got to know who your buyers' customers are. Well, that's part of what selling is all about, and that's what being a consultative value-added seller is. So keep doing that. And if you're not aware of some of those things, learn about how to be more consultative and how to be more of a value seller. Those are a couple of the most important things. And of course, mindset is everything.
I've heard, you know, you and I are both on LinkedIn, and there are a lot of sales leaders now that their teams are working from home. There's a lot of suspicion, are they actually working, or, you know, are they really focused? And from sales professional point of view, not really getting the direction because their buyers are often also working from home and their world has changed as well. So what would you say for the leaders, for the sellers, how they need to reorientate and pivot what they're doing and do it better?
Yeah, leaders need to be more involved, in my opinion. Not like a micromanager, but they need to set a tone for every day. They need to get on a group call with their sellers, and maybe an end of the day call too, just to see, you know, what are you working on? What are you excited about? And let people know that we're all in this together. I'm going to be doing revenue generating activities too. As your leader, if you need me on a call, let me know, because we know that more leaders on both sides, on buyer and seller sides, are higher level folks are participating because they're accessible now. So it's a great time to set up appointments, set up meetings, and then talk to people when perhaps you can get their whole buying team on a conversation.
Yeah. I really want to talk about your book, because I know that we had scheduled this for the launch of your book, and then the pandemic came, and we were talking before we recorded this about the changes that you've made in the book. So your whole focus is She Sells. That's the name of the book. Attract, promote, and retain great women in B2B sales. So tell us more about the premise of your book, what inspired you to do it, but also about what you have pivoted to ensure that it is more pertinent now than ever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have been thinking of this book for a very long time, and I share in the opening of the book that the introduction is a story taken from 2015 when it hit me as I was consulting with a particular company, looking out at a room full of sales leaders and realizing in this entire room of 70 people that only 4 were women. And it hadn't hit me before, and I think that happens to a lot of people, is that we don't really, we just kind of go along. We're in the system and we do what we're supposed to do, and we focus on growing revenues, and And it was a pivotal moment because I realized I needed to find out why this was so many years later from when I started in sales. And over time, I've collected stories and I've interviewed men and women. I've done research. It's been quite a journey. And so the book was going to be released at the beginning of the year. And luckily I was behind schedule, and I'm so glad, because then the pandemic hit, and I didn't want it to be a pre-COVID-19 look at the state of diversity and inclusion in sales, because what happened was initially, there are companies in crisis right now. There's no doubt. There are companies that are all pivoting, that are changing their messaging, that are changing how they do business, where they do business, and there's a lot up in the air going on. I want people to know that now more than ever, it's critical that we have diverse sales teams, because for one thing, in the case of the imbalance of the genders, women bring so much to the table when it comes to more empathy, more communication, strong listening skills, and just having diverse opinions. Women handle risk differently than men, generally speaking. And so these are critical things that we need going into uncharted waters, into a time we've never dealt with before. And so the book has pivoted. You're right. I actually rewrote a couple of chapters and still working on it to get it done, that reflect why it's an imperative, rather than, it probably sounded more like a nice to have before that.
So why now? Why now is it an imperative? Because buyers have changed, the whole environment was changing, and my belief is that the sales was perhaps for some industries a good 2 years behind where their buyers were in their wants and their needs. And so, but why now with this pandemic?
Well, one thing, there's an incredible opportunity now for more women sales leaders. And the reason I say that is because there's been a bias in the past. Of course, there are a lot of biases that are just kind of in the culture from how we are all raised. But there was a bias in the past that both men and women felt this way, I think, about the higher you go in a sales leadership role, the more travel there is, for example. So a high-level sales executive has massive amounts of travel. In fact, we call them road warriors, right? And that doesn't have to be the case anymore. So I'm curious to see whether companies and company leadership view this time now where things could change. We also know that women tend to be running households more than men do. There's a lot of studies that back that up here in the States anyway. And so that also puts a burden on women who might be homeschooling their kids right now, and who are going to be doing that. They're going to be dealing with their kids all summer too. And they are, even if they don't have kids, they're worrying about their relatives that might be in a nursing home, or just older relatives. So there's a lot of stress put on women, and I'm curious to see whether some women get out of sales because of that, because they have a quota, they have less customers, they're struggling to reach them. Maybe it's chaotic at their company, who knows? And it'll be interesting to see how all these things kind of shake out.
It is certainly the new normal, in that, I was talking before, I'm in my happy bubble. I'm loving this. I'm used to working from home and going out to clients. But as you say, women do tend to hold the greater burden for kind of family commitments and kids and home life and things like that. I wonder if they will actually think, I prefer this way of working. I can manage all those other plates that I have to spin, and I can get on the phone to clients. If they're in the new world, there is less of an expectation that face-to-face sales if that all pans out, it may be perhaps there's an influx of women that see that this is a great way to earn a good income, but I can actually manage my life in with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that that's another thing to be watching for. We've seen companies that are selling all their furniture because they're not going to have a downtown office anymore, and the whole company is going to be work from home now. I think it depends on your scenario, what's your situation, and if you have kids, how old they are, and also what your resources are for support, because it goes from being very difficult for some people to being not as difficult depending on ages and resources and people, and we will be watching for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So she sells, attract, promote, and retain great women. So give us some of the strategies that has come out of your research that you write about the book, particularly about, attracting, promoting, and retaining.
Yeah, so some of the research is the research that has been out for a while. I know that Gartner recently updated their women in sales research, and so we're including some of that. One of the outcomes of their updated research is that chief revenue officers in companies think that the balance of gender is okay, is not a problem in general, and that totally goes against what we show in terms of statistics. And so it shows me that people still need to have some compelling reasons to make the effort for more women in sales. And I do talk about the fact that it does take some extra effort because as women, generally speaking, I try not to make blanket, comments. Generally speaking, we will work very hard in our role, we'll get a lot done, we'll accomplish many things, but we won't shout it out to everyone. And we're waiting, a lot of us are waiting for somebody to tap us on the shoulder and say, oh, Janice, you are incredible. You should do this or that, and I'm going to help champion you to do that. And we expect that to happen, and it doesn't happen. It virtually never happens, although there are some great male allies that I've met that actually do that and will really support a woman and say, you know what, Janice, I know you said you're not interested in a leadership role. I'd love you to just pursue this track and see what happens. And we need more of that happening in our companies. We need leaders to stand up and be supportive. And we need leadership to very clearly set out what the mission and the vision of the company is, what they stand for, and see, and then actually walk the talk, because women more than men care about that. They care about working for a company whose ethics match their own, and who will walk, not just talk about what they believe.
Excellent, excellent. Can't wait to get the book. Now, you can pre-order this, can't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have a link on the Women's Sales Pros site.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes. So tell me, your book, is it focused on women, or does it include ethnicity, or, what's the main focus of?
Yeah, I wrote it from my journey has been the lack of gender equity for women in sales. It's what I've experienced. I've seen it for more than 30 years. I was very clear in the introduction to say what it isn't, and that I'm not going into diversity of ethnicity, for example, because I'm a white woman. I'm a privileged white woman, and it's hard for me to say that I think I might know what it might be like for someone else who's not like me. And I believe that that's the next step. And I want to enroll more people in helping share that story. But I don't think I can do it credibly, other than the fact that I believe that all sorts of issues when it comes to inclusion are important. I also think that ageism is a big issue, particularly in technology in companies in the US. I don't know what it's like in the UK,
It's
but
the same.
yeah, it's a big issue. And also those with less able, I don't want to say disabilities, but less able, and mental health issues. There are some amazing roles for people in sales with all sorts of different backgrounds. More folks from the military I'd love to see. So I really want to see a more diverse workforce. This book is about gender.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate you staying in your lane as well, and also basing it on your own experience. So I'm really keen to read more about it. So what's the one tried and tested strategy that you would offer listeners to scale their sales?
For listeners to scale their sales, one of the most underused opportunities is to build what I call a third list of strategic referral partners. It's a great time to do this if this is still airing during the pandemic, because simply you have a list of your customers, you have a list of your prospects. Everybody knows that, we all do that. We have those lists, we have them in our CRM. But do you have a formal list of people who could refer you multiple times on an ongoing basis? And in addition to having that list, do you have a process for how and when you contact them? So most people will contact their prospects on a regular basis. If they're a past contact, you've done business together in the past, you would still keep in touch. But how about on like clockwork, monthly or quarterly, that I reach out and I know what you do, you know what I do, we don't do the same thing, and we can add value on both sides. So it's something that I'm excited when I see it happen, and it is such good money, because from a revenue standpoint, deals close faster when you're referred in.
Yeah.
And they they just take less effort because there's a trust factor that's built in. So I think that that's one of the things, building a strategic referrer network and having a process that you methodically work.
It's interesting that, there's often so much focus on quota and hitting target, but actually the easiest way to do that is to nurture your network and do it on a regular basis. And, your extended network of people. So I think that's a brilliant strategy, really good, because it is one that's often forgotten.
Yeah, and it's not universally done well at all, and hasn't been, for years. I think it's probably harder to get started, and you have to get your mindset aligned. But once you do it, it's just another process that you have in your CRM, you have, in with your systems, that, it's time to reach out to Janice, and boom, and then we do. And so I'd love to hear from people, and they can reach out on LinkedIn. If they do this, I'd love to showcase them myself, because it really, really works.
I had a Roger Harrop on, and he had a similar strategy in that he booked an appointment with, the CEO or CFO, someone that's kind of on the periphery, but it's still a decision maker, and we'll just, have a conversation, no ulterior motive. And because there was an exchange of value and ideas, kind of talking about what each organization is looking to develop and innovate in the future, and then they would exchange contacts and so forth. In the end, it became a 6-monthly meeting, and other people were invited to the table, because there was so much value in just seeing where it takes you, having a brainstorm with people on the outside of your organization. And then what often happens is you work a lot closer together, you co-create and you innovate. And because they rely on a lot of that real value that's coming in to the organization. You're a key supplier, a thought leader. You know, you're completely embedded in the organization because they rely on you not only for the sale and the product, but for the knowledge as well that you bring into the organization.
Yeah, if you can get away from that vendor status,
yeah,
that's the dream. That's really where you want to be.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Yeah. So who is your hero or shero and why?
I have a number of heroes and sheroes. I wrote about my grandmother in a book called Standing O, which was published. Scott McGregor put a great book together about that. But I also, within the sales world, I would have to say Jill Conrath. She's a good friend now, but originally she was a sales author, and I saw her first book. She's written 4 books on sales. They're all excellent and they're all relevant. And I reached out to her, and over time, we built a very strong friendship. And ultimately, Women's Sales Pros was created because of Jill's inspiration and Jill standing up and wanting to see more women on main stages at sales conferences and at company events. So I would have to tip my hat to Jill Conrath.
Well, actually, I've asked that question to various people and she's come up quite often.
Oh, really?
So I've never met her. I really do want to, and I'd love to get her on the podcast, but she is, you know, a real goddess.
She's amazing. She's kicked a lot of people in the butt to get their books done too, I might add. And that's, you know, it's another thing. She's really a voice for having women use their voice and share their experience. So I would love to see her on your podcast.
Yeah. So Laurie, I'm going to put the link to She Sells so the listeners like I will pre-order it. But tell the listeners how they can contact you. Yes,
find me on LinkedIn. I'm under Score More Sales, and if you Google Score More Sales, you probably find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We're all over the place. We try to keep every channel up to date. It's a challenge, but I would say Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect with any of your listeners. Excellent. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a guest on Scale Your Sales podcast, Laurie Richardson. Oh, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much, Janice.